interceptions. But first, we continue this DeMar DeRozan conversation. And this happened back in March. I was reading this Forbes article, and I have a little bit for you. So some of these numbers are updated, but the meat and potatoes of it remains the same. I think he actually moved up one. He is 31st on the all-time scoring list now, but this was right after a game where DeMar DeRozan hit another clutch shot for the Bulls, who needed a lot of them as they struggled. This is from a Forbes article, and number one, I would say, is that every single player ahead of DeMar DeRozan right now on the all-time scoring list is in the Hall of Fame, as we talk about whether or not DeMar DeRozan is underrated. So everybody that is ahead of DeMar DeRozan on the all-time scoring list is in the Hall of Fame. So that's something to keep in mind, all right, as we have more to get to here. They go on to say, DeRozan joins Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James as the only active player in the top 35. He's only 1,918 points away from Jerry West, who sits at 24th all-time. Of course, he's closer now because this was back in March. And he's on pace to finish at just over 1,800 points this season, which means he'll likely crack the top 25 within the next couple seasons, barring injuries. He's just under 3,000 points away from Kevin Garnett, who sits in 19th. And depending on how long DeRozan decides to play for, you can easily see him landing in the top 15, which is just 3,488 points away, or about 2.5 to 3 seasons at the current rate DeRozan is scoring at. Goes on to talk about his accolades. Throughout his 15-year career, DeRozan is a 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA member, and 2-time gold medalist with Team USA, including one in the 2016 Olympics in Brazil. He's in the running for Clutch Player of the Year. Of course, he ended up getting second, and is one of the greatest players in Toronto Raptors franchise history, sitting at the top of most of their scoring records. Is he a Hall of Famer? I think the answer, if it's not yes yet, will be yes. One thing they mentioned in the article is it depends where he goes next, because everybody knew he was going to leave Chicago. Look, I'll say this, the same way his odds for Clutch Player and De'Aaron Fox's odds for Clutch Player, they both dropped. Yeah, they're going to be sharing a little bit more, but I still think that DeMar DeRozan, assuming this is the last stop in his illustrious career, I still think that he has done enough to be a Hall of Famer, which means that the Kings were able to sign somebody who's on track to be a Hall of Famer. And again, that hasn't moved anyone. And that goes back to the conversation of DeMar DeRozan possibly being the most underrated player in the NBA right now. We know he's no spring chicken. Okay, but some of this disrespect, whether it's Vegas, whether it's the four-letter network, any of these national outlets, somebody gave it, Sam Quinn from CBS Sports, and we're trying to get him on the show because, hey, we want to know what your thought process was. I believe he gave the Kings, it was a C- or a D? Really? And, we're going to respect people's crafts. We're not going to say that but I would say I think I watch more Kings basketball than you do. I feel confident saying that. I feel confident saying, did you remember when Kevin Huerter went ghost for a couple games, right? Or for a lot of the season? Did you remember when we were begging Harrison Barnes to play like he did on that revenge tour? Did you remember those times where it was just hot potato between Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox because Sabonis' number one attribute isn't necessarily to score? Did you remember those things? Because I do. I was at Golden One. I was watching each and every game with Katie Christensen and our guy Kyle Draper, and of course Mark Jones in his bag like JanSport, because I was watching all that. So it's not to take away from what you do, sir, and how much research you do. I'm only going to speak on the research that I do. And maybe we'll look back and I was wrong. And maybe we'll look back and you were correct, or vice versa. But this idea that you can add somebody who has all of these notes of his career, by the way, is also an Ironman, and I'll give Harrison Barnes that. He was on the court, so you're not losing that. You haven't had to worry about injury, knock on wood, to go through all that, but the team isn't going to be any better, or you could argue it got worse. I got to hear about Harrison Barnes being a unicorn? Are we serious? Look, and I'm not going to pretend like I've been in Sacramento all my life. We came out here. We started the show, Stiles and Watkins, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. in October. So maybe I'm just getting used to this being in Sacramento. But it's just like Boogie said, another King great. It's getting ridiculous now. How in the world? Just walk me through the narrative if the Lakers, and I know they have different setups, but walk me through the difference in narratives if the Lakers got DeMar DeRozan. Dare I say if the Clippers got DeMar DeRozan. You still think they would have got a D or a C minus? Oh my goodness, they got their star, big three in LA. Just stop it, okay? Stop disrespecting DeMar DeRozan's name. Stop disrespecting a future Hall of Famer. Stop disrespecting De'Aaron Fox. Stop disrespecting Mike Brown. By the way, Mike Brown, 20th best odds to win Coach of the Year. So that's what they think of Mike Brown. That's what Vegas thinks of Mike Brown. And again, you got to follow the money. We get all that. But it's the ridiculous. We do want an opportunity, or to give you an opportunity to hop in with who you did want, assuming, just like Monty McNair said on these airwaves, assuming that the Kings are heading in with this core, right? And I do think that the DeMar DeRozan situation will be good. But who was your dream get for the Sacramento Kings? Realistic. Don't say Giannis or anybody like that. But who was your dream get? Maybe it was marketing. Well, then I would say, okay, you ready to move on from Keegan? Who was your dream get? And tell us your situation for that dream get, all right? So I would say, Simone, mine, off the top of my head, if we're talking realistic, right, I did think that Kyle Kuzma, I do, not that you can't get him now, but then if you do get him now you start thinking about, okay, how many shots are on the court here? I did think the Kyle Kuzma fit was decent, even though he tweets a little bit too much for me. At least the Kings right now, a lot of them just play basketball. I'm not saying you can't tweet. I'm just saying that's something that I don't think a lot of Kings fans are used to. Kyle Kuzma, he likes to talk a lot, right? So I do, from a basketball standpoint, I think Kyle Kuzma could morph more to what the Kings did want. When we initially started the draft process, we had people, I wanted Tejan Salon. Okay, and honestly, I might be wrong, because not that anybody thought Matas Buzelis was going to be available, and neither of them were, but Matas Buzelis in Chicago, my goodness, he looks good right now. But that's who I wanted. They went with Devin Carter. I did my homework on Devin Carter. Devin Carter wasn't even supposed to be there. It was based on this Fryer, right? They're still listening out there in Providence, but I thought Kyle Kuzma could definitely be a guy that could help this team. Simone, did you have a realistic dream get?
I wanted to dismantle the Pelicans. I wanted Brandon.
You wanted Brandon.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, again, he was, he's not going to be upset outwardly, but he talked to the coach during the playoffs. Hey, get me more touches. You got to pay him $50 million after this next season. Kyle Kuzma at least on a better deal, but he is a baller. And one thing that I noticed, and I think everybody noticed during that game with the Kings, he also can distribute the basketball. Which I don't think a lot of people, even myself, knew that he could do that on that high of a level. So I feel you with Brandon Ingram. I'm just not really sure who is. I guess he's the second. He would be the second option to De'Aaron.
Yeah, and this is a long time ago.
Things have
changed. Things have changed.
That's right.
That's just the name.
That's right. Let's see here. From the 916, they say Paul George. Yeah, Paul George, that would have had to be some type of a sign and trade. And, Steve Ballmer in the Intuit Dome, which is getting fired up this season. I mean, and it looks incredible, by the way.
Yeah.
And by the way, can we just some flowers for Steve Ballmer? The issue, and look, I'm not I gotta be careful here, but yeah, a lot of times the people that get the t-shirts, they're doing pretty well in life. Yeah. They're doing pretty well in life. They're sitting closer. And a lot of the people that are throwing the t-shirts, unless it's Kelsey Plum from a couple years ago when she fired that thing up to the second row.
Cannon.
The cannon. If you don't have the cannon, right, not everybody gets a t-shirt. You got people throwing it. They can't get it past the second row. So good on Steve Ballmer. If you didn't hear, I guess the situation is the shirts are dropping from everywhere.
It's formatted. It's around the ring, and it's like going to shoot out.
Yes. Yeah. And what's funny is the idea of winning something. People love to win something because you could have just put the shirts on the seats. You could have just done that as well. Okay. So shout out to Steve Ballmer. Let's see Simone Moore coming in on my beloved text line from the 916. I'm happy that we got a high level player without having to give up Keegan, and we kept Monk. That's from Alan. Great name, but we do spell it differently. Alan goes on, or different number. They just both end in 4 and 7, actually. 916 says, I wanted Jeremy Grant. I like Jeremy Grant. The newest report, or the most recent report on Jeremy Grant, is that the Blazers want 2 first-rounders for him. The Drive Guys had on a Blazers writer who says, yeah, they could want that. I don't think they're going to get it. So maybe Jeremy Grant isn't out of the question. Jeremy Grant could play that 4, and DeMar DeRozan could play that 2, because honestly, I think DeMar DeRozan, he can play the forward position, but I think of him as a shooting guard or at biggest a 3. I don't know that I love him at the 4 position, but apparently that's what they're going to rock with the Kings, according to Monty McNair. The 916 says, I spell it correctly. That is Alan, Alan. That is funny, Alan. That is funny. Coming up next, your boy Q from Las Vegas Sports Network, Raider Nation Radio, ESPN Las Vegas. Come on, Raider fans. Who else could get you a Raider guy here